Oh, that's going to tell me how I fix stuff. So today we have this Allen Wales calculator. You can see it's an electric one because it has a cord. Take the little cover off here. It's not in the best cosmetic shape, but hopefully we can get it working. That part works at least. So let's just plug this in and see what happens. There's some paper in here. I'll crumple that again. No, okay. This one has this paper roll in it all. Let's see. Let me see if I got some paper loaded in here. Alright, so we got some paper in there. So let's plug it in and see if it'll do anything. Well, not really. It looked like it ran a cycle, but none of the risers came up. Let's see if there are in any column. Oh, that came up that time. I want to come up over here. So you only see what it's printing. What if I just do? If I just do this column, there's nothing. What if I just do this column? Nothing. But if I do all the columns, I'm betting that the risers are glued together. So let's do one in every column. See if the numbers here advance. I wasn't paying attention to that. No. Do 8 in every column. No. So it's not doing anything there. Of course, I'm not sure what these switches do, so one of these could be non-add. That one doesn't do anything, or it doesn't move. See if I put that in that position, what happens. So still nothing here. I'll do that position. Well, that must be repeat, so you didn't clear the keyboard that time. Still nothing there, so yeah, that, or still not clearing the keyboard. So no, oh, must be this one. This one's clearing the keyboard. Yeah, so this switch is repeat. This switch doesn't seem to do much of anything, or you can tell anyway. This one also doesn't seem to do much of anything. What does this do? So that might be total, but that's also not doing anything. So I guess it's time to open this up and take a look at what's going on. So I got the cover off. Turns out that these come with the cover, so I've taken the keys off without really thinking, and then looking at this I realized that these won't go through the cover anyways, so kind of waste time to hit the keys off, but anyway, it's off now. So let's take a look. Let's move this cover and have a good look at the register, see if the register wheels are sticky. Take this little mask off here. Let's see, that one moves. They all move, so these are all free, so that's not the reason why it's not adding. I don't know if the register is not dropping. What I'm going to look at next is see if I can find a handle or something to put on here to operate this manually, so that we can play with it a little bit more. So that escalated quickly. I was trying to turn the machine over by hand. It wasn't really getting anywhere. And when trying to figure out, why I wasn't able to turn the machine over by hand, I couldn't really see what was going on. So I ended up just taking more and more pieces off until I was finally able to get at least to see one problem. I don't know. I'm not sure if this is the main problem. I wasn't able to turn the machine over by hand, but it's not really turning over because this is a reciprocating machine, not a rotary one, so it only goes back and forth. But you get the point. Anyway, the problem is that all of these, which are attached to pieces that go down and rotate on a shaft, are seized. Same with the ones. Like there's another shaft that runs through here, which has other rotating pieces, which are also seized. So I started loosening them up. Like see this one is fine. You can also see that goes back and is attached to the print driver. So these are the riser sections, and you can see how they have little steps on them. So basically, when the machine's at rest in its home position, these will all be up like this with the print heads at 0. And then as the machine starts to go through its cycle, these will be released, allowed to spring forward until they are stopped by a peg sticking out the bottom of the keyboard. Or if there's no peg, I think there's something that comes down in here, and there's no key press in that column. There's a latch in here that'll lock this at 0, so that it doesn't add anything. But, see, so I got this one was pretty good. This one I've freed up. Same with this one. This one is getting there. Still a little bit slow. So it's not too bad now. But the rest of these are solid. And you can also see, like I also loosened up those pieces on that shaft, but like this one here is still pretty solid. So like if I grab this here, if I can, you can see the whole shaft is rotating, and so is this piece. So I don't know what I've been doing, which is going to be hard to do with the camera in the way, but somewhere here I had a pair of pliers, which are these. See if I can grab this here, and see if we can get this to move on the shaft a little bit. Just barely moves a little bit, so yeah, that's going to take some work to get that freed up. I think some of these other ones are free on the shaft. Like I think this one might be okay. It wiggles a little bit. But there's at least another one in here that's completely seized, so the shaft is going to have to be worked loose. And of course, this one's going to have to be worked loose. Additionally, so I'm not sure what you can see, but let me take a spring off of this one so you can see down in there. So you can see that these pieces here that rotate here go up. There's a little lever that goes up here, and then there's a peg on the end of it. That peg, as you can see in this one, is supposed to latch into that little groove down there in this riser, and then see, this is so locked up. Let's try this one. So you can see that as that locks up, the peg also moves, which locks both pieces at the same time. So to kind of work on them separately, what I've done is, you can see on this one, I've kind of just pried this over a little bit to pop this out so that I can work on both pieces separately. And so, since I've already got this piece freed up on the shaft, the only thing blocking in this column now is the bottom end of this piece on its shaft. And to go about freeing that up, what I do is, I'll take, let's see which one. This one was good. So this is the one that's still frozen up. So I'll stick a screwdriver back here down behind this to hold this in place. What's going to happen is when I try to move this, because it's frozen to the shaft, it's going to try and rotate the whole shaft. And that's not what we want. So I'll put that back there to hold that. And then I'll try to use these big pliers here. Grip that and move it, and you can see it's moving the whole shaft because that one moved as well. So I'm gonna have to do something else there, but I'm gonna pry this back down. So I think this was, that was actually not, Oh, I see. I think I know what happened. I think this had come up and rotated this, which, because this is still frozen to this shaft, rotated the other one, which is frozen to this shaft, which is this one. So that's all that happened there. So actually that did move on the shaft, and it wasn't as bad as some of these other ones, actually. I wonder if I can grab it with the pliers now. Oh yeah, that's actually not too bad at all, really. Be a lot worse than that. Am I working on the right one? I was supposed to be working on this one, wasn't I? Yeah, that one's frozen. See how they're all moving? It's rotating the whole shaft. Okay, so yeah, this one's actually not too horrendous. This one is not going to be fun. I can put something in there to block that somewhere. That might work. And we'll see. I can't see. This one's good. This one's the one. Grip this with the. It's moving, but it's really stiff. This is one of those things where, everything it's just glued on so hard. Especially some of these ones over here. This one's actually moving a little bit better than some of these ones were. But you're kind of worried that you're gonna bend or break something on the machine trying to pry on it to free it up. But there's really no other option that I can see. There's multiple pieces on this shaft that are taper pinned in and are not coming out. And the shaft that runs through the bottom down there that these are stuck on also has stuff taper pinned on either end, so that's not coming out. Even if you could get those taper pins out, I think you'd have to take one whole side of this off, which would involve more taper pins, I believe. So, really, this is the only way that I can see. Maybe this would be a candidate for soaking the whole machine in a giant tub of lacquer thinner. But right now I don't have a tub that won't melt if I try to do that. So we'll just have to go with this, and hopefully it'll come out okay. So I'm going to keep working on. So you can't even move that. You just have to pry it in. It's really sticky. So, but like I said, a lot of these ones were that way as well, and now they're it's a little bit. Well, I was going to take the spring off of that one. Now they're okay, pretty much. There's just a little tiny bit of drag, but not terrible. So, yeah, I'm going to keep fighting my way through the rest of these, and hopefully we can get all those freed up and all these freed up, and then look at what the other problems might be. But yeah, this is one of those things where you're worried you're going to break something trying to get it freed up. Well, now we have a mess. So I got the print part back there, the register clearing assembly in there, not clearing, but carry assembly. Over there we've got the keyboard standing up in there, and this is the side. Of course, the register over here. For some reason my multimeter has climbed into the stack. That's the base under there, but anyway. So the reason for all of this is, if we take a look at these pieces here, which are, this goes together like this. So these pieces here, if I can get them together all the way to show you, there we go. So these pieces here are the risers or register drive, whatever you want to call it. So normally these would be in here, somewhere around here, and then when the machine goes through a cycle, these lock out until they're stopped by a peg on the bottom of the keyboard, and then the register will drop down and engage on the return stroke to add the number. At the same time, the print heads are attached to this part back here, so they rise up and down with it. If you remember, these were all seized on the shaft that they rotate on. So, when you try to run the machine, these would all rotate with the shaft instead of, springing until they're stopped by the peg like they're supposed to be. And I thought I got them all freed up, and then I realized that actually these are two-part assemblies, and you can see this part here rotates independently of this other part. And the reason for that is subtraction. So for addition, these two pieces move together. For subtraction, they move in opposite directions. And I was able to get all of them freed up except for the very first one. The very first one, I could not get the pieces to move separately. They were fine to move on the shaft together, but they would not move independently like this, like they're supposed to. So what I ended up doing was basically taking the whole thing apart, taking out, this is the shaft here that goes through all of these pieces that they all ride on. And you can see this goes in like this. And you can see this is where this goes in here, like that. And this is the bar that lets them spring out and then pushes them back, like that. So anyway, I took all that out to get to, this is the first one here. And the first one's a little bit different than all the other ones. So you can see how this one just has this little tiny piece on this side, whereas the other one we were just looking at has this nice large piece on that side. But other than that, they're pretty similar. Like, see, this comes off of here, and then there's a smaller shaft, and then the main shaft goes through the hole in the middle there, and then this just goes on top of the inner piece, which is attached to this side. However, on this one, this piece was so frozen on the inner, or on its rotating shaft, that, the inner shaft there, that when I was, moving this by pliers and it was in the machine, I was grabbing this and trying to work it free, it was actually rotating on its, pressed in housing, rather than the housing rotating on the inner shaft. So, I'll take this apart, which I have gotten it free now, but you can see how there's this stamped piece, and then it has this, inner housing here, which looks like it's been, they've used this ring to press it on, or they put this ring on and then press this flat to, stake it together so that this shouldn't rotate on here. But actually, this inner ring here that rides on that shaft was so seized to it that if you grabbed this piece with pliers and moved it, it would actually rotate on this piece that I'm holding, rather than rotating on the shaft like it was supposed to. So that's why I couldn't get it to work free, because when I was working it, it was working, working on rotating on this piece instead of this whole piece rotating on the shaft. So I ended up taking the whole thing apart to get to this. I had it soaking in lacquer thinner for quite a while and it made no difference. So I ended up putting the whole thing in the vise, and then you can see how hard I had to grab this with pliers to get it to rotate, but for my pliers dug in there to get this thing to rotate, so I had to grab it with the big pliers and then just rotate it back and forth a whole bunch until it finally worked free, and finally I was able to get it off. And this thing was so glued on here, a couple times during the process I questioned whether this even was supposed to rotate on that inner piece, just because of how hard it was stuck on there. You can see I did some filing here when this was still stuck on there, because this stamped piece was rotating on this outer piece that it's not supposed to rotate on, but because it was rotating on there when I grabbed it with the pliers, I thought that maybe this ring here was staked onto the inner piece, and then just the stamped piece, you can see the stamped slice in the middle there. Just that stamped slice in the middle, I thought maybe that was just supposed to rotate on there. And there was a little bent over tab there, so It looked like someone had taken a screwdriver or a punch or something and just hit it right there and bent a little tab over. And I thought that maybe because that was bent over, it was pinching this ring, which I thought was free, against the sheet metal, which I thought was free, pressing it against this outer ring, which I thought was staked onto this piece. And so I tried to file that down, and of course that made no difference because that wasn't the problem, but that's what happened there. So yeah, now that I finally was able to get it off, you can see that it rotates freely now like it's supposed to. But this is one of the worst cases of dried grease I'd ever seen. The lacquer thinner didn't help. And actually, when I put this in the vise couldn't even grip it strong enough. And actually, when I was rotating it, this piece was hitting against the vise shaft, whatever you want to call it, the worm and the support bars of the vise that went through the bottom, because I clamped it in, like this. Like these were the vise jaws, so this piece was down under the jaws against like the inner workings of the vise, and I'd actually, put so much force on this that this pushing against the inner bars of the vise actually bent this out, so I had to bend that back. But yeah, that was really glued on there. I wasn't sure I was going to be able to get it to come free, but it's free now. So definitely got a lot of cleaning to do here. You can see I took all of these pieces, I took all those off of this shaft. So now I'm looking at a good cleaning on there. Even though I got them to all work free, you can still see how dirty the shaft is in places. So definitely gonna, pretty glad to be able to take the opportunity to clean that up. Gonna clean this up. This is what operates the that piece that rocks backward and forward to allow the risers to come down to hit the keyboard. So that goes on, actually goes on right here, and then has this roller here and that roller there that ride on this piece. This rotates with that shaft, and that just moves this back and forth, and then this is attached to this piece right here, and then this is taper pinned on that shaft, and then this rotates to rotate the shaft, which in turn moves this in and out to allow those to come forward and push them back. So yeah, I've got a lot of cleaning to do here. Gonna fully clean up these, fully clean up that shaft, clean up this piece, clean up the frame. So I ended up having to take out 3 taper pins to get this all apart. There was one in the end of this shaft. When I first tried to take this shaft, I tried taking the pin out from this end. That wasn't going to happen. But luckily, the one came out of this end, which allowed this piece to come off, which you can see could definitely use some cleaning. So we're going to be able to clean that up now. Took that off. There was one back here, which allowed this piece to come off. That's the motor drive input. See the hole there where it went through. And that one was so stuck in there that I was hammering on it so hard it almost flattened the head out like a rivet before it finally broke free. So you can see those pins are incredibly stuck in there, and trying to get them out, you almost worry that you're going to damage something, either bend the frame or bend the shaft or something, just because it takes so much force to get those pins out of there. And then of course I had to get the pin out of this piece and take this off so that I could get all the pieces off the shaft. You can see the hole there where the pin is. Of course there's still one in that end, that one didn't come out. So yeah, definitely been quite a fight to get this thing apart, but I'm pretty glad I was able to get it apart. So you can see, how much dirt is down in here and some of the pieces here that you can't really get to easily when the machine's together. So definitely glad to be able to get all that cleaned up. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to work on cleaning all this up, and then we'll work on putting it back together. I really wasn't expecting to take this down this far, but there's just no way I was going to get this to come free. When I was working it, I thought that maybe, because like I said, just this sand piece was rotating on this piece. So I kept working, I thought it was going to work free, but it just wasn't happening. So That's when I took the whole thing apart and realized that it was rotating in the wrong place. See, this whole thing is supposed to rotate, but when I was working it before, just this piece was rotating, and this was staying still because it was just glued that hard. So, anyway, a lot of cleaning to do here, and then a lot of figuring out, put this whole thing back together. Alright, so making progress putting this back together here. And so now you can see, so if I put this in addition mode, which is just releasing this, and then activating the handle, you can see that both these things move together. This piece and this piece move at the same time. And the reason is, if you look down there, you can see there's a pin that goes through both of those slots and holds them together. So they both have to move together. Now if we put this in traction mode, we'll put that back up and leave this latch forward, and now if we go into subtraction mode, we'll see they start to move together, but then they move opposite. So now you see these move opposite. Because if you look down here, the pin has moved over and now is only in one slot, which allows the slots to move separately. And then these geared segments and the actual pieces here move in the opposite direction, or subtraction. And so that was the issue that we had, was that was not working. That was C's in its home position, so that it would only go to like that point for subtraction instead of going all the way forward. So that's why we had to free that up, otherwise subtraction would never have worked properly. But they're all working fine now, which is expected after I went through and cleaned everything up. So I'll just continue. I have a couple more pieces to clean up, one piece to put back on. I have to redo the cord, the strain relief went into the back of the machine. The cord was starting to fray, so I'm gonna cut that off and rewire the cord and up a little bit higher where the rubber is better. Other than that, I think we're pretty close. So I'll have to reinstall the printer mechanism yet. I think the keyboard should be pretty much ready for install. I've already cleaned up most of the pieces on that. You can see actually the keyboard goes in something like this, and it's kind of fairly good, go all the way in, but going something like that, and then and see on this side here we have a whole bunch of levers. I actually had to play around with these because I initially was setting up like this, which for some reason I thought would be fine, but of course it wasn't, and it fell over and bent this one a little bit, so I had to straighten that back out, but it's fine now. That moves, and this, I won't go in now because it's on the table. So this lever serves a dual purpose. You can see when it comes up, it pushes this down, which is the keyboard release. So when this is down, you can press keys. When this is up, you can't press any keys. Keys are locked. So this is like the normal home position. And this piece here rests on, if I can show it, this pin right here, which will move down when the machine starts operating, which will allow this to spring down. Didn't that time because I had it too much. I had this sitting on the table, so it was putting too much pressure on here because this piece sticks out the other side. So if you lay this on the table, it rests on that. So if I lift this up, you can see it springs down, and will spring down like that. And then on the return stroke, see this little tab here hits this, which is the keyboard clear. Or this would normally be in a position like that. And there's another piece that goes in here that will detent this actually, normally. But anyway, so one of these positions, I think I need to have the rest of this stuff in here to make it work, but let's see, this piece also goes like right there, and then screws in there. But anyway, then depending on different positions of this depends on how far this will rise up past this to catch it on the return, or just kind of go up like that and then not catch it on the return. But anyway, so this, I'm not 100% sure exactly how this fits into the mechanism yet, but it does. This piece here on the end goes down and interlocks with some pieces down here, which I've cleaned up. I'm just not exactly sure what the complete purpose of that is yet, but it's always very difficult to get this thing to go in. So I'm going to put that a little bit, see if I can get that to go in, and then maybe pop the register back in and we'll do some testing. Alright, let's see. 1, 2, 3. That seems to work. 4, 5, 6. I still have to clean up some of this keyboard yet, so this may have to come back out again. But just for testing my, drop something. For testing my reassembly here. And that is correct. Cool. So now, normally I would be able to push this back, but the total lockout mechanism is integrated with the printer assembly, so the catch won't release. So I'll just manually release that, push that back, and now we should be in total mode, so they should clear that right out. And now it's going to be hard to return this because at the end of total mode, it releases all of the all those spring-loaded risers. It releases all those. They all spring forward, so you have to return the handle against all those. And I'm guessing because this is an electric operated machine, they didn't bother with having a high power spring. There is a return spring in here, but it's not enough to overcome all the individual springs of each column. So I guess they figured they didn't really need it, since normally it would be returned under motor power. I don't know why they bothered with it at all, but why they bother putting that return spring in at all. You can see the end of it hooks on right here and runs back to the main shaft. Yeah, I don't know why they even bother putting it in, because it doesn't seem to really help to return it all. The motor has to work anyway. So anyway, let's try subtraction. So say we have 50. Am I not returned all the way? I think I am. I think it's not catching for some reason. That's returned all the way. That's interesting. Oh, this hasn't returned all the way, I guess. For some reason, that's interesting. I wonder what's up with that. Alright, so I'll have to look into why this total level has not returned all the way home. That's kind of interesting. So I'll have to figure that out. It's still latched somewhere. I haven't figured that out yet, but it seems to mostly working, and we haven't tried subtraction because I can't get this to. Doesn't work. Oh, there it goes. Alright, so it must have got caught on something, so I'll have to figure that out why that got stuck. But in the meantime, let's say we have 56. We'll add that in. And so we're going to subtract 5 just to start with. So we'll enter 5. And then this should leave. I'm not sure if that's supposed to latch or not, but push that forward. Yeah, that was right? We had 56, we subtracted 5, we got 51. So that seems to work. Let's try subtracting 2 and see how the carries work. So we should end up with 49 now, if this works. And we do. Alright, cool. So subtraction seems to work now, so that's good. Let's try totaling this out again. And just do a blank crank first, just not sure. I don't think you have to do it on this, but just for fun we'll do that. Set that to... Alright, that time it retoned, so that's good. So, not sure why I got stuck that first time. You can try a non-add. Let's do something like 46, just some random number. And if we enter, say, 7, and push this up, we should... Alright, something sticky there. I was able to figure that out yet. That something was sticky there, wouldn't let it come all the way forward. So that's not quite working, I guess, but yeah, it didn't release itself either. So there's something still up with. What if I hold it all the way back? If that, yeah, okay. So maybe it's supposed to latch further back. I'll have to look into that. So now it came all the way forward. See if it clears itself now. Was it that far forward before? Yeah, now we're stuck in. Alright, so something's up with non-add then too. So a few little bugs to work out yet, but see if it'll total in this state. Probably not, right? Yeah, and the total won't engage. Something's still stuck with this guy. But for the most part, looking pretty good. Addition and subtraction seem to work fine. Again, so I'm not sure if this is supposed to latch or not, so I have to look into that yet. But yeah, cool. Looking pretty good so far, I think. Alright, so I think we got it working now. So if I do something like add in, I don't know, 47. And then I subtract, say, 8. And I think this will latch better once I have the switch and stuff back in, because the switch linkage has some latching properties. So if I hold this down and operate it, you'll see that works. Let's see if we can do a total now. That cleared out, so that's fine. Do something like, let's add something random in here. And test out subtotal, which would be this way. Well, if it would latch, we could. There we go. I have to look into that yet, but I should put it back in, and it does. And then total is this way. And that seems to work. And of course, non-add we had tested before. And that seems to work. So other than maybe some flaky latching on the subtotal level, we'll have to check into that. And we'll have to double check that this is going to latch properly, subtraction going to latch properly once we have the switch mechanism back in. But I think for the most part, I'm pretty confident that all this stuff is set up and adjusted properly. And if we take a look at how this actually works over here, think I showed before, at least I hope I did, that when this shaft rotates, actually you can see that over here, there's a little cam on this shaft that follows a track in here. So when the shaft is in the home position, it's over this way all the way, and then when it rotates, this cam pushes it in. And what that does is, like I showed how there's pegs in there that latch and delatch the separate pieces of the risers. So when the shaft is over this way, the pegs are over this way, and so those are locked together. When the shaft rotates and moves in, it releases them and then allows them to move separately for subtraction. So that is controlled by this latch right here. You can see if I push this over, oh, maybe I have to fix that yet, but if I push this over for subtraction, like that, you'll see that this should come latched in like that. And so then when I pull the handle, you'll see that the shaft rotates, and I'm not sure you saw, but it jumped over. And then watch as I return it. See, it jumps back in to lock those together again. And then for normal addition, you can see that this is released, and so the shaft does not rotate and stays in that correct position. And this piece here you can see is what activates that. So when I push that down, that pushes that in to grab that. And if you hold this back, then it will unlatch that and stay in addition mode. Let's see, this is supposed to spring all the way forward, so I'll have to check into that yet. This is for addition, so all that this does is rotate this piece here, and then this will have a linkage that runs back to the switch. So when this is like this, that activates the switch. And you'll see when I do subtraction, it also activates that as well. So that'll also activate the switch. That should swing like that, I think. So yeah, not super complicated, but when it's all apart, it's a little bit. You have to think about it for a minute, how it all goes back together. This is, like I said, the repeat non-repeat. So when it's in this position, I think this is non-repeat. So this should come all the way up. See if that happens. Yeah, see how that came all the way up? Now on the return stroke, it'll push that little knob there, and that clears the keyboard. If I switch it this way, you'll see it only comes up so far and then stops, and doesn't ratchet past that, so it doesn't clear the keyboard. That's your repeat, non-repeat. And then these pieces here rock a little bit, so you can see this piece rocks for subtraction, and then there's little cutouts down here that allow these to drop down, which basically means that when this is like back for subtraction, you can't push the addition key down at the same time because it's locked out there. That's all that's for. And then this one is for totaling, I think, and possibly non-add. So if I wait, non-add, well, it didn't really do anything for that. It's kind of interesting. That's non-add. See if it does anything for total. Yeah, you can see how that came up there, so now these keys are locked out. For total. It's kind of just a lockup mechanism there. You see now it's free again for addition and subtraction operation. So yeah, I guess that's about all I have to say about that. The reason why the total and non-add were not unlatching is because of that big long piece that I showed before that I had to bend back into shape. That is tripped on the return stroke by this peg here. Let's see if we can get a look at the bottom real quick. Actually, this is going to show up, but it's going to be kind of hard to see. But basically, right in here are a series of catches, and those are the catches for non-add and total and subtotal. So if I push this, see how it pushed that up? And then this piece sprung forward and caught it. So this is that piece that I said was bent out of shape. So that wasn't releasing before. That's what wasn't releasing. So if I pull this back a little bit, if I can anyway. Yeah, so that releases the non-add. And what happened before was that was not getting released on the return stroke. It was bent just a little bit incorrectly. And so the peg that releases it on the return stroke was not releasing it. And that's why non-add and total subtotal were not releasing. But it seems to be fixed now. I just bent it a little bit and it seems to be okay. So I think pretty much I'm going to move on to, I have to clean up the register a little bit. You can see some of these digits here are kind of dirty. So I have to clean that up. I have to clean up the keyboard yet, and I still have to clean up the print mechanism. You can see some of it's still pretty grimy there. Get this in view. Focus. There we go. There's a nice view. This is still pretty dirty. Some dirt there, some dirt on these things. The print risers I have to clean up, so I have to clean that up yet. Reinstall that. And then just the basic mechanism. This is for, this piece here is for the switch. So this sits in the bottom of the machine like this, and then this attaches up front here to that piece I was showing earlier. And then it kind of just works this back and forth like that. So that's it, clean up, reinstalled, clean up the printer, reinstall that. But yeah, not that much left to do here. So you can see what that goes. I actually had it backwards. The pointy end goes up towards the motor inside the switch latch there, and then the hole goes over here, and then this piece, put it on the side, goes in that hole down there. I have to clean this up yet. And then this goes up to here, and then, so this is what trips it to activate the switch. Alright, so the motor is rewired in. Let's see what happens. Theoretically, oh, nothing happens, it looks like. No. Alright, that was anticlimactic. Notice I had the linkages not in the right state over here, so that's why that happened. Now let's see what happens. Looks like nothing. That's cool. Wonder why that is. There it went. There we are. I'm going to clear the keyboard every time. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that seems to work. See if we can get a total here. Yep, that seems to work. Enter something like, I don't know, 263. And if we want to subtract, say, 7. Yeah, that is correct. So we can try a subtotal now. We're actually trying a non-add first. So if we enter some random garbage and do a non-add, that seems to work. If we do a subtotal, should be this. No, that doesn't seem to work. Alright, so that's interesting. My linkage not reset here or something. We do add. Doing an add works. No, subtotal is not triggering it. And total is not triggering it. Interesting. So something is still not. Right. Oh, there it went. Not too sure about that. Because it could also be because I got the setting on, the paper towel here, something might be jamming in there, so I have to take a look into that. But for the most part, it seems to be working. Alright, so I'll take a look into why subtotal didn't work. Let me try that again. Put something in. A lot easier once this is. It's not triggering it. Interesting. Even that's kind of iffy. So yeah, something's up with the mechanism. I'll have to take a look at that. But most of our seems to work. Like non-add works, right? Non-add work, just total and subtotal. Don't know which one works. So gotta take a look at that. But otherwise, seems to be working. Repeat, non-repeat worked, right? We do something like 25. Should be able to enter this multiple times now. Yep, and then we change to non-repeat. Clears out. Perfect. Alright, so just some funny business with the total and subtotal, and hopefully that'll be all working. So I've got to clean up the printer, put that back in, and hopefully, yeah, so that time it worked. But subtotal, this is not going all the way forward, so I'll take a look at that, but yeah, not too bad after all. Alright, so I think we are just ready to put this thing back together. I did clean up in between the keyboard columns here. It's okay. Again, this could come off and get repainted, but pretty much rebuilt everything on this machine except for the keyboard. So since there's really no issues with the keyboard, I'm just going to leave it as is. It should be fine, really. It's just more of an appearance thing, not a functional thing. The keys seem to work fine, so you can see cleaned up all the levers, everything here on this side, all that's cleaned up. Same thing over here on this side. If we move this over a little bit, you can see pretty much still a little bit of dirt here. You can't take this out. This is riveted in, so I couldn't take this out to clean it up. So I had to clean the rest that I could and then put a bunch of oil on there, and should be fine. But the rest of the stuff that did come apart, clean everything all up. You can see there's some marks on here from the vice grips, but that's not really a problem. Nothing goes on there because there's no handle for this machine, so not a problem. Again, cleaned all this up. Cleaned up the printer mechanism, had this all disassembled, cleaned that all up, cleaned up all of these. There's a little bit of rust on the top of them, but that's the top, that's fine, no issues there. If we rotate this around, you can get a better look at the back of it. I do have a grommet that's supposed to go in there, so looks like it's come out and is down the cord. I did rewire the cord in because right where it came out of the case, right here, they had a giant rubber block stress relief, but the cord was frayed coming out of that, right at the end of that. So if I can get this stupid grommet to go back in there. So the cord is clamped in. The screw right here goes into a clamp that clamps it in. So I'm not worried about it getting pulled out. I just wanted to put this grommet in here so it's not, rubbing directly on the steel frame. So this isn't going to stand. I might have to find something to shove in there to give it some pressure to keep it in there. Like I said, the original had a giant molded rubber block on the cord itself. So that's why the cord is much smaller than the cutout here in the frame, and that's why the grommet doesn't always want to stay in, because there's so much slack in here, the grommet can twist sideways and pop out. So I might have to do something about that, but otherwise, like I said, the cord is held in, so not worried about getting pulled out. Like I said, this clamp holds it in, so that should be fine. Cleaned up all the print mechanism, all the stampers, everything, that should be all fine. Machine seems to work. The only concern which I had was here on this side. This is the only screw I had left over that would go in here, and all these screws are different sizes, so they should only really fit one place. But the hole in the frame around the screw is fairly large, only a little bit smaller than the screw head. So if you just put the screw in, then there's that big hole. It's not like a positive fixation on the top of the motor here. There's that big hole for it to kind of wobble around in. So what I did was I just took a little piece of rubber tubing. Actually, was a piece of the cord that I shipped off this out of the installation, and put that around the screw and then tightened it down. So now it's kind of like a rubber bushing in there, and it's tight. It's holding it in place, and it's holding it in the middle of the hole now. I don't remember what came out of there when I took this apart, whether there was like a dried rubber bushing in there that fell out or what. Like I said, I can't imagine I had the wrong screw in there, because something that was like, if I switched this with another screw, these are different enough that it wouldn't work. If there was a screw that went in here with a much larger boss on it, if I put that somewhere else, it wouldn't have fit where this screw should have gone. So I can't imagine it's the wrong screw. So I just not quite sure what happened there, but the solution I have should work fine. I just have to clean up the glass window yet. I did try to clean up the digit wheels, but where's a screwdriver? But it just wasn't going to happen. I'm not sure if you can see, but these ones are shinier than these ones. I tried using rubbing alcohol, and that didn't want to clean up the paint at all, but it did start melting the wheels a little bit. So I also went over them once with lacquer thinner, which again didn't clear up the digits, but it did take off some of the meltiness that the rubbing alcohol had caused. So if lacquer cleaner isn't going to dissolve that dirt, then I'm not sure what will. But of course, lacquer thinner and rubbing alcohol do kind of damage the wheel a little bit. So I just tried it on these three and then stopped. It wasn't getting anywhere. So they should be readable. I'm not concerned about that, but it just would have been nicer to get them all nice and white again. I suppose you could scrape the paint out and repaint them, but not really interested in doing that right now. This part, it definitely took a lot more time than I was expecting it to take. Basically rebuilt the entire machine except for the keyboard assembly. So anyway, just have to clean up the glass window, install a new ribbon, and then put the cover and the patent back on, and I think hopefully we should be ready to do this final demonstration. Alright, so all about together now. I was putting this back together, actually, started hearing like a little sizzling sound, and I think that capacitor that was attached to the motor started giving out. So for now I just cut the wire. I think that's just a noise suppression capacitor, because this is a universal motor. So are these machines from like the mid 30s or early 40s? And at that time AM radio was what everybody used. I mean, FM wasn't even available until like 41 or 42, and didn't really gain popular acceptance until the 60s. But anyway, what I'm getting to is I think that capacitor is just there to suppress the electric noise from the brushes in the motor. I believe that's all that's for. So for now, just cut it out. The machine is sure to function fine without it. Just don't have your AM radio on when you use it. So clear works. Why are we not printing? We printed once. Why is it not printing every time? I'll have to look into that. I lost where we were. I think we were here. Yeah. So it only printed once. That's interesting. And it wasn't like the first time either, it was the second time. I'll have to look into that. But that is correct. We have to do, this is locked right now, see, so we have to do an empty one, and then we can do total, which also didn't print. Wonder what's up with that. Alright, so I'll have to look into that yet. You can see the paper is advancing as it's supposed to. Wonder why we're not printing. Total works, we can enter something, actually let's do 1 minus. See that all the way over, we got it back in, that works as well. We can do something, if we do a subtotal, that works, and then of course total, and then non-add. Yeah, alright, so the functionality seems to be there except for printing. So let me look at that. You can see them rising, it's just not releasing the hammers to actually strike, but it did once, that's so weird. So let me look into that. Then the issue with the printing was there was a spring I forgot to hook back up that resets the hammer releases. I probably should have showed this while I had the printer mechanism part, but basically how it works is, let me see if I can draw a little diagram. So unfortunately for you, I'm not the type of engineer that had to learn drafting, but anyway, basically there's three main pieces that make up the release thing there. This is the hammer, so this is sprung forward, and I've just drawn little springs here. This doesn't necessarily represent exactly where the springs are attached in the pieces, but just to get the idea of how they're sprung. So these want to spring forward up in to hit the print stampers. These are the releases. They want to spring backwards to lock the hammers in. And then these are the pieces that release the latches here. So this line represents the print head. So this will slide up and down according to the number you've entered. And it has a little peg here that rests on the end of this lever. So when the thing is down at 0, this pushes down on the lever and lifts this end up, which means that it is not in line with this little plunger here. And focus is not behaving. So when this is at 0, when you've entered at 0, this end of the lever goes down, means this end goes up, so it's not in line with this little nub down there. When this moves up off of 0, this will go up, this is spring loaded down, so it will be in line with that thing there. During the cycle, this shaft, which is this little dot here, will actually move backwards, and if this is off of 0, so that this is in line with this, it will push on this, pushing this, causing this to rotate to release the latch here, allowing the hammer to spring forward and hit the number. Now, you may be asking what happens if I have a 0 in, say, the first column, but maybe a 1 in the next column. You still want to print the 0 in the first column so that you register 10 instead of 1 with a blank space next to it. And for that, these pieces have little tabs on them so that if 1 releases, it releases all of the 1s to the right of it. So if this is in the 10s column and I've entered 10, this will release this, and then that. Alright, so you can't run out of memory there, but hopefully you get the idea of how that works. And so the string that I forgot to reattach was the spring that pulls these back forwards at the end of the cycle. So basically this was not pulling back forward to allowing these to reset and then be released on the next cycle. So that's all that happened there. Got it fixed up now. And so we can move back over to here. And make sure everything is in shot. You can see the printer. Okay. So you already entered 1, 2, 3. You can see that register there. If I do a non-print, you can see it prints 1, 2, 3 with a little number sign next to it to indicate, that was non-add rather, indicate non-add. Non-print is controlled by this, I believe. So let's continue on. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 7. Blank one, and now if I do a subtotal, this should register that. See a little S prints there, that's good. If I do a total, little star prints, that's good. All right, so that is good. So let's see, what else can we do here? If we enter something, and I believe this will be non-print that way. Yes, and it does not advance the paper roll, that's good. So how about if I pull it this way? I'm not quite sure what that'll do. Let's try something entered that way. Oh, that's double spacing. Okay, so you can see it advanced it twice there, so if I enter something else, you can see now there's a blank space in between. That's double space, single space, and non-print. Alright, so leave it on single space. Should good now. Yeah, that's some real space again. So I put this on and repeat. Now I should be able to put a bunch of numbers in. Yep, and that seems to work. Alright, cool. So I think we are just about done with this video. Obviously there's a lot more that can be done with this machine. The case can be repainted, the keyboard plate can be taken off and cleaned and repainted. It would probably be best to be repainted because there was some rust on it. Something better should be done about the number wheels. They're readable, but they're not perfect. But for now, that's about the time I want to spend on this machine. Actually, it's a lot more than the time I had intended on spending on this machine. I wasn't intending to have to do a pretty much full rebuild on this, but anyway, everything works. All that's left is cosmetics, so pretty satisfied with that. You can see it prints fairly well. Some of the 2s aren't as clear on the top, but other than that, yeah, pretty satisfied with that. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching.